Christ is in our midst. What a comforting word that is. Christ is in our midst. I love that. Anyway. So, if you watched my previous video, you know I came very close to getting arrested last night. And glory to God that did not happen, but it's made me really think about a lot of things. And in a very minuscule way, has taught me about life in prison. And it's really minuscule. I'm saying that because you ask anyone who's ever been incarcerated, they probably would laugh at me right now. I'm not saying I know what you went through, just saying that I got some valuable information out of it. Information about myself and about what these guys are going through, guys and girls. So, what really struck me was the utter lack of privacy. And I think that's one reason why the inmates are so, what's the word I want? Not tense, but they're like hyper vigilant about things like people eavesdropping on them, like even if it's just other inmates. Like that's a big deal. Like people fight about that. I mean like fight. This guard that was just, you know, not getting on my good side, he was standing like, I don't know, 5 feet away. And he was watching me talk to people. He was clearly listening. Now, I understand why. Okay, this is not a criticism of the prison's rules. Okay, let me make that clear. But it was still highly uncomfortable. And then, of course, when he got in my face about taking a hug from somebody, I accepted it because I had to. You know, and I just pulled way back. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, okay. Because I didn't want him to kick me out. That was my motivation for doing that. I'm actually not sorry that I hugged a guy, but I don't want to get kicked out. So, I played along. But then after that individual and the inmate and all the other inmates who had come to, all the other men, I'm sorry, I hate when people say that. Inmates. No, they're human beings. They're men in this particular case. So after the last of the men had left, I was kind of just, you know, stewing about it, and then the women came in. And we only had, I think we had 2 or 3 women. It was a very small group, because normally we have about 10. But I looked at them as they were coming in. And I actually said this out loud. I was like, I'm going to hug the shit out of these guys when they leave, just to officer friendly, you know. Pardon my language, but I was very rattled by it, really. And that taught me, by the way, I didn't hug anyone, because I really didn't want to get in trouble again. I hate getting in trouble. What it made me realize, though, was it reminded me of my rebellious streak. We all have a rebellious streak in some way, at some level. But I took very careful note of the fact that, you know, here I am in this prison getting ready to go home, being a volunteer, not having to go back to a cell block and have the guards running my life. You know, I needed to put up with it for about another 45 minutes, and already I got rebuked once, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm going to get him. You know, not physically, but, I mean, like, oh, I'm going to show him, I'm going to move behind his back, you know. Kind of like, you tell your kid not to stick his tongue out at you, and then when you turn your back, he's going to do it because he's rebelling. Same thing about this. And I just went, oh my God. This was one thing, and already I'm like, Urgh. So imagine these men and women who are there for a year. Or sometimes they're there longer than a year if they're being held over for trial and it's a, homicide investigation or something. Just strange. Really, really strange. So the defensiveness and the rebellion that you see in a lot of these incarcerated men and women, that doesn't excuse bad behavior. You must understand that, okay? I'm not one of these idiot volunteers that thinks they know how to fix the prison system. I don't. But it's important to think about these things. Not only for our own self-knowledge, but it's important because what we are doing right now in our American prison system is not working. Okay? We have... I could read you the statistics. I have to, they're in a pile over there. In the state of Pennsylvania alone, something like 15% of black men are in prison. Wow, right? Obviously what we're doing is not having any permanent change. For people of either race, by the way, that's not a racial comment. It's just that black people get arrested more and get sentenced to prison more than white people. It's not right, but it happens because racism is alive and well in America. Okay? I don't know how to fix this, but I really think that clamping down further is not the answer. Because if I reacted like that, imagine somebody who's been there for months or years and maybe is not very self-aware and, reacts rather than responds and commits a crime in response to something like that. Prisons are dangerous places. You also have to remember where you are. It's not the community rec center. It's a multi-purpose room in the prison. Maximum security facility, no less. I think that we're making the problem worse. Because control, it seems like a good idea to those of us on the outside. But I don't think it's helping. When you have a chance, go to YouTube and look up, what's it called? I think it's called Lockdown. It's a National Geographic series. There's a couple of these different, video series about various prisons in the United States or in the world. And you see, for example, these guys who have to be kept in solitary confinement for decades because if you let them out into the general population, they'll do things like start killing people. Or they'll do things like lock themselves in, some room, I don't know, like a classroom or something, lock themselves in, barricade themselves in some room, and just start destroying the prison. Start breaking, or attempting to break furniture. That's why there's no wooden furniture in prisons, by the way. It's a lot harder to break metal. They'll purposely make the toilets overflow. They will throw human waste at the guards. That's called gassing. Absolutely, unbelievably disgusting. Okay, they will do this. Why? Why are they acting like very dangerous, petulant children? Well, it's because we're treating them like they're about 3. If you don't understand psychologically how to get people on your side and you work in the prison system, you got a problem. And don't quote to me these release statistics. Oh, well, our state, or Pennsylvania is the Commonwealth. Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we have a 20% turnover rate every 6 months, or whatever it is. I don't even know what the rate is. I do have it in the notes, but again, lazy. We can say that we have this great turnover rate, but what does that really mean? It means nothing, except that we're releasing unrehabilitated, unrepentant, defiant, rebellious people back into the community where they're going to reoffend and go back into prison, and the cycle gets worse and worse and worse. That is why crime escalates, because you get angrier and angrier and angrier, and you go from trespassing to assault to burglary to maybe burglary and harming or killing the occupant of a house, or it gets worse and worse. We have to consider this, people. I just really, I'm not convinced. I never have been convinced, but I'm like upset. I'm not angry that it happened. I'm actually grateful for the experience, and doubly grateful that I didn't get ejected. But we have to pray about this, because this country is going to hell in a handbasket, as is evidenced by our prison system. Anyway, I'm over the 10-minute limit. I gotta go. Thanks for watching.